Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This is Flow Speak Studio, the place where we practice real English for real life, not perfect English. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex. We're really happy you're here with us today. Truly. Because today's topic is one that almost every English learner struggles with, even the confident ones.
Yeah, today we're talking about something very specific. Something very uncomfortable. Something that usually happens without warning.
Speaking English without preparation.
That moment when someone suddenly asks you a question. And you weren't ready. You didn't plan it. You didn't rehearse it in your head.
And your brain just goes, excuse me? What?
Exactly. And that's why today's key phrase, the one you probably saw on the thumbnail, is no prep. Just speak.
And if that phrase already makes you a little nervous, good. Because that means this episode is for you.
You know, Alex, I think a lot of people believe that good English speakers are always prepared. They think confident speakers always know what they're going to say. They have answers ready. They have sentences ready. They have vocabulary lined up in their minds. But real life doesn't work like that.
Not at all. Real conversations don't send you an email first saying, "Hey, in 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you an unexpected question."
Exactly. Life just throws the question at you. At work, at a cafe, in a meeting, on a call, or even in a casual conversation with a friend.
And suddenly, you're expected to respond right now.
And that's when the panic starts.
I remember this very clearly. I was in a meeting once, not a language class, not an exam, just a normal work meeting. Everything was going fine, until someone turned to me and "So Alex, what do you think?"
Oh no.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I did have an opinion. I had thoughts. I had ideas. But because I wasn't prepared to speak at that exact moment, my mind went completely blank.
That's such an important detail. Because people think the problem is not knowing English. But often, the problem is pressure plus surprise.
Exactly. It wasn't that I didn't know the words. It was that my brain froze because it didn't have time to warm up.
And here's the thing I want everyone listening to understand right now. If this happens to you, there is nothing wrong with you.
Nothing at all. This happens to native speakers too. We just don't notice it as much because they hide it better.
Yes, native speakers hesitate. They pause. They restart sentences. They say things like, let me think. But when learners do it, they think, oh no, I failed.
I think the real fear isn't speaking without preparation. The real fear is being judged in that unprepared moment.
Absolutely. It's the fear of sounding stupid. The fear of making mistakes. The fear of saying something wrong and not being able to fix it.
Because when you're prepared, you feel safe. But when you're not prepared, you feel exposed.
So before we go any further, let's do something very simple. If you're listening right now, take a slow breath. Drop your shoulders. Relax your jaw.
You don't need to perform here. You don't need to be perfect. You're just listening.
And in this episode, we're going to talk slowly and honestly about why speaking without preparation feels so hard, what actually happens in your brain, and how you can train yourself to stay calm and speak anyway.
No scripts. No memorized speeches. Just real, usable English for real moments.
So now that we've set the stage, let's move into the first part of today's conversation.
We're going to talk about real moments when speaking without preparation hits us the hardest. And how those moments actually feel inside.
You know, Alex, when we talk about speaking without preparation, the first thing that comes to my mind is how unfair real life can feel sometimes. Because no one tells you, hey, get ready, in exactly 10 seconds you'll need to speak English. It just happens. And it usually happens when you're already tired, distracted, or emotionally somewhere else. Like, you're thinking about your coffee, your to-do list, your emails, and suddenly English shows up like, okay, your turn.
Yes, and that moment feels almost violent in a way. Not physically, of course, but mentally. It's like your brain is walking calmly, and then someone turns on a bright light and says, "Perform now." And what makes it worse is that it's often not in safe environments. It's not in class, where mistakes are expected. It's at work. It's in front of people. It's in situations where you already feel observed.
Exactly. And that observation changes everything. Because when you feel watched, your brain behaves differently. You're no longer just thinking about what you want to say, you're thinking about how you sound, how you look, what people might think. I remember once. I was on a video call, completely relaxed. I wasn't planning to speak much. I was just listening. And then someone said, "Emma, can you explain your idea again?" And I remember this very clearly, my chest tightened. Not because I didn't understand the topic. Not because I didn't have ideas. But because I wasn't ready.
That chest tightening feeling is so real. It's like your body reacts before your mind does. Your heart speeds up, your breathing changes, and suddenly your brain feels smaller. I've felt that so many times, especially early on. And what's interesting is that when you're unprepared, time feels different. Even a 2-second pause feels like a full minute inside your head.
And then comes that inner voice. That voice that says, "Say something. Anything. Don't be quiet." But at the same time, another voice is saying, "Wait. Make it good. Make it correct. Don't mess up."
And those two voices don't work well together at all. One wants speed. The other wants perfection. So your brain gets stuck in the middle, and that's when the freeze happens.
Yes. I think it might help listeners if we talk about specific situations. Because speaking without preparation isn't just one thing. It shows up in different ways. For example, meetings. Meetings are one of the worst places for this. Because meetings move fast. People interrupt. Topics change quickly. And sometimes you're not even sure if you should speak until suddenly you're expected to.
Meetings are brutal. Especially when you're trying to be polite, respectful, and professional all in a language that isn't your own. I remember a meeting where I had prepared my part very well. I knew exactly what I wanted to say when it was my turn. But then the conversation changed direction, and my prepared moment disappeared.
Oh no.
Yes. And then someone asked me a question I hadn't planned for. Something simple, actually. But because it wasn't in my script, my brain panicked. I remember starting a sentence, stopping, restarting, and thinking, wow, I sound much less confident than I actually am.
That's such an important point. Because often, confidence and preparation get confused. People think if I sound unsure, it means I don't know. But that's not true.
Sometimes it just means you didn't have time to organize your thoughts.
And it's not only formal situations. Sometimes the hardest moments are actually the casual ones. Like small talk. Someone asks you something simple like, "So, how was your weekend?"
Oh yes. That question looks harmless, but it can be dangerous. Because you don't know how long to answer. Short? Long? Funny? Serious?
And if you're not prepared, your brain goes, weekend, what did I do?" Suddenly you forget your entire life.
Exactly. And what's funny is that these moments are supposed to be easy. But because they're unplanned, they feel harder than prepared presentations.
I think what hurts the most is what happens after the moment passes. When you replay it in your head, you think, "Oh, I should have said that. I could have explained that better. Why didn't I say the sentence instead?"
Yes, the delayed perfect answer. It always comes later. When you don't need it anymore. And that can slowly damage your confidence if you're not careful.
Because you start telling yourself a story. A story that says, "I'm bad at speaking. I can't speak without preparation. I need time or I'll fail."
But the truth is, speaking without preparation is a skill. Not a talent. Not something you either have or don't have. It's something you train.
Yes. And that's what this episode is really about. Not forcing yourself to speak perfectly, but learning how to stay present when you're caught off guard.
So in the next block, we're going to go deeper into what actually happens in your brain when you're unprepared.
Alex, something I wish I had understood earlier in my learning journey is that when we freeze, it's not because we suddenly lost our English. It's because our brain changes mode. And no one explains that to learners. They just think, I failed again.
Yes. And once you understand what's happening inside your brain, everything feels a little less personal and a little less scary. Because when you're speaking without preparation, your brain doesn't feel like it's in a language situation. It feels like it's in a stress situation.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't say, oh, this is English practice. It says, something unexpected is happening. Stay alert. And when that happens, your brain shifts into survival mode.
In survival mode, your brain has one main goal: protect you. And protection doesn't mean eloquent sentences or beautiful vocabulary. It means quick reactions. Simple reactions.
Which is great if you're crossing the street and a car is coming. But not so great if someone asks, what do you think about this idea? Because suddenly, your brain thinks this is a threat.
Exactly. And when your brain thinks there's a threat, it shuts down anything it considers extra. Complex grammar? Extra. Advanced vocabulary? Extra. Creative sentences?
So what you feel is this strange emptiness. Like you know things, but you can't reach them.
I like to explain it this way. Imagine your English is stored in a library. When you're calm, the lights are on. You can walk in, find the book you want, open it, and read.
But when you're unprepared and stressed, the lights flicker. Some rooms are closed. Some shelves are blocked.
Exactly. The books are still there. You just can't access them easily.
And then, we make it worse by overthinking. Because once we feel the block, we start watching ourselves. We start analyzing every word while we're trying to speak.
Yes. It's like trying to walk while constantly looking at your feet and asking, am I walking correctly? That self-monitoring breaks the natural flow.
And that's why preparation feels safe. Preparation gives your brain a path.
But real conversations don't always follow paths. They're messy. They change direction. They interrupt you.
Another thing people don't talk about enough is emotional pressure. Sometimes you're not just unprepared, you're tired. Or nervous. Or distracted. Or already doubting yourself.
Yes. And when emotional energy is low, your brain has less capacity. So it's not just English you're dealing with. It's your whole day.
Exactly. And then we expect ourselves to perform perfectly. It's unrealistic, but we still do it.
I think it's important to say this clearly. People often confuse speed with confidence. Someone who answers fast is seen as confident. Someone who pauses is seen as unsure.
But pauses don't mean ignorance. They mean processing.
And many confident speakers actually pause on purpose. They just look calm while doing it.
So instead of seeing unprepared moments as failures, what if we saw them as training moments? Moments where your brain is learning how to stay present under pressure.
Every time you survive one of these moments, even if it's messy, you're teaching your brain something important. I can handle this.
In the next block, we're going to talk about how to respond in these moments, not perfectly, but humanly.
Simple tools. Gentle strategies. Things you can actually use when you're caught off guard. Let's keep going.
Okay, Alex. This is the part where people usually lean closer to the speaker. Because this is the moment everyone knows too well. You're there. Someone is waiting. Your brain is silent. And your heart is loud.
Yes. And in that moment, the worst thing you can do is tell yourself, I must sound fluent right now. Because that pressure is exactly what keeps your mind blank.
I want to say this very clearly. Your goal in that moment is not to impress. It's to stay present.
Yes. And staying present often starts with something very simple. Acknowledging the pause.
Right. Instead of fighting the silence, you can gently step into it. You can say things like, let me think about that for a second.
Or, that's an interesting question. These are not filler phrases. They're bridges.
Bridges give your brain time to catch up. They reduce the feeling of danger. And the best part? They sound completely natural.
Native speakers use them all the time. They just don't call them strategies. They call them thinking.
Another big shift is this. Stop trying to form a perfect sentence in your head. Think in ideas instead.
Yes. Ideas are lighter than sentences. Instead of thinking, how do I say this correctly? Think, what's the main point I want to share?
Once the idea is clear, the words usually follow even if they're not perfect.
When you're unprepared, structure is your best friend. You can use very basic frameworks like one reason is, another thing is. For example,
These phrases create rhythm. And rhythm calms the brain. It's like giving your thoughts a path to walk on. I also think it's important to give yourself permission to sound human. Humans hesitate. Humans correct themselves. Humans search for words.
and guess what? That doesn't make you weak. It makes you relatable.
Some of the most engaging speakers I know are not the most perfect ones, they're the most real.
I remember once being asked a question in a meeting, completely unexpected. I felt that blank moment. But instead of freezing, I said, "That's a good question. I haven't thought about it from that angle before."
And that sentence alone probably gave you space.
Exactly. By the time I finished saying it, my brain was already warming up.
What we're really building here is tolerance. Tolerance for silence. Tolerance for imperfection. Tolerance for uncertainty.
And the more you tolerate these moments, the less power they have over you.
In the next block, we're going to slow things down even more. We'll explore key phrases that help you survive and even grow in unprepared moments.
Each phrase will be unpacked with meaning, context, and real-life stories. Let's move into that.
Before we jump into the phrases, I want to say something important. These phrases are not here to make you sound perfect. They're here to help you stay calm, buy time, and keep the conversation alive.
Exactly. Think of them as emotional anchors. When your mind feels lost, these phrases bring you back.
Phrase 1, let me think about that for a second. This phrase is powerful because it's honest. You're not pretending you know the answer. You're not apologizing for thinking. You're simply allowing yourself time. I need a brief moment to organize my thoughts. It's used in meetings, conversations, questions you didn't expect. Let me think about that for a second, okay? I think one important thing is communication. I've used this phrase so many times, and every time, people nod instead of judging. Once, during a presentation, my mind went completely blank. I said this phrase, took a breath, and suddenly my thoughts came back. No one noticed the panic, only the pause.
Phrase 2, that's a good question. This one is simple, but incredibly effective. It shifts the focus away from you and onto the question itself. You're acknowledging the value of the question while giving yourself space. Can be used in interviews, discussions, casual conversations. That's a good question. I think there are a few ways to look at it. I once said this during a job interview when I had no idea how to answer. By the time I finished the sentence, my brain had already started working again.
Phrase 3, I've never thought about it that way before. This phrase removes pressure. It tells the truth, and truth is calming. This idea is new to me, and I need a moment to process it. Context, deep conversations, opinions, debates. Example, I've never thought about it that way before, but I think it makes sense. I used this with a friend once, and instead of awkward silence, the conversation became deeper.
Phrase 4, what I mean is. This phrase is a lifesaver when you start speaking and realize it's not coming out right. It gives you permission to restart. I want to clarify or simplify what I'm saying. Context, anytime you feel confused mid-sentence. Example, what I mean is, the situation is more complicated than it looks. I use this almost daily, even in my native language.
Phrase 5, give me a moment to explain. This phrase protects your space. It tells the listener, I'm thinking. Stay with me. Meaning, I need a little time to organize my thoughts. Context, serious conversations, explanations. Example, give me a moment to explain. It's a bit complex.
Phrase 6, I'm not sure, but I think. This phrase removes the fear of being wrong. You're allowed to be uncertain. Meaning, this is my opinion, not a final answer. Context, discussions, brainstorming. Example, I'm not sure, but I think the main issue is communication. Once I stopped trying to sound certain, I started sounding confident.
Phrase 7, can I come back to that? This one is underrated. It gives you control over timing. Meaning, I'll answer later when I'm more prepared. Example, can I come back to that after I explain the first part?
Phrase 8, let me rephrase that. This phrase saves you when words come out wrong. And they will. Meaning, I want to say this more clearly. Example, let me rephrase that, what I'm trying to say is.
Phrase 9, it's hard to explain, but this phrase creates empathy. People lean in when you say it. Meaning, this idea is emotional or complex. Example, it's hard to explain, but I felt very overwhelmed.
Phrase 10, does that make sense? This phrase reconnects you with the listener. It turns the conversation into a shared space. Meaning, I care about being understood. Example, does that make sense, or should I explain it another way?
These phrases are not just words. They're permission slips to think, to breathe, to be human.
And the more you use them, the less often your mind will go blank.
You know, Alex, when we talk about silence, pauses, and not knowing what to say, I realize something. Most people aren't afraid of English. They're afraid of what silence says about them. They worry silence means they're not smart enough, or not fluent enough, or not interesting enough. But silence doesn't mean failure. Sometimes it means your brain is working.
That's such an important point. We grow up thinking that confidence means talking fast, answering immediately, never hesitating. But real confidence often sounds like a pause. It sounds like someone taking a breath and saying, "Let me think about that."
Exactly. And I want to say this directly to anyone listening right now. If your mind goes blank in English, that doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means you're human. I've frozen mid-sentence. I've forgotten words I use every day. I've smiled awkwardly while my brain screamed. Say something. Anything. And you know what? The world didn't end.
And here's the part nobody tells you. Most native speakers are not judging your grammar. They're not counting your mistakes. They're listening to your intention. They care about. Are you trying? Are you present? Are you connecting? Pauses don't break conversations. Fear does.
Yes. And the phrases we shared today, they're not tricks. They're bridges. They connect silence to speech, panic to calm, fear to flow. When you use them, you're telling yourself, I don't need to rush. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to stay in the conversation.
And that's how fluency really grows. Not through memorizing thousands of words, but through staying present even when it's uncomfortable. Every time you pause and continue anyway, you train your brain to trust itself.
So here's our invitation to you. Next time you're speaking English and your mind goes blank, don't run. Don't apologize. Don't disappear. Pause. Breathe. Use one simple phrase. Stay.
And remember, fluency isn't about never getting stuck. It's about knowing how to move forward, even when you do.
Thank you for spending this time with us. If this episode helped you feel a little calmer, a little braver, a little more human in English, then it did its job.
We'll see you in the next episode. And until then,
keep speaking, keep pausing, and keep going.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment down.